everyone. Welcome to the Glow Podcast. I am here today with a very exciting guest. I have Katie from Chamfr, and I'm very excited to talk to her. But if you are new here, we are Tailored Marketing, and we partner with organizations in healthcare, longevity, and the wellness space to fuel growth through strategic marketing and sales strategies. So if you are interested, drop a comment below. Katie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If you would,
Thanks
I would
so much
love
for having me.
Of course. If you would, I would love if you would just kind of go ahead and introduce yourself so the listeners know who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm Katie Karmelek. I am one of the co-founders of Chamfr. Chamfr is an online marketplace, a B2B marketplace specifically for medical device engineers to get the parts that they need to innovate faster. We have over 14,000 in-stock products and across 100 suppliers, and we're constantly growing. Our main goal as a business is just to drive innovation in the MedTech market. You know, it's really upstream. We're not selling to doctors or hospitals. We're really just selling to allow that innovation to happen as quickly as possible. And then ultimately that helps get these devices to market that much faster. And we love the idea that we're connecting people at their point of need and helping people, even if it's not a life-saving device. Some are, and some are even just making your life a little bit better, and we love that about our business.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. Honestly, like such a unique concept too, because like you said, I feel like a lot of people are selling devices to doctors, hospitals, that whole thing, but not as many people are selling the parts. And so I'm so interested, how did you kind of come up with this idea? Because I feel like so many innovations and inventions are created out of necessity. So what kind of in your background led you to realize like, this is something we need?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was an R&D engineer. I guess I still am, but running a business, I don't do as much engineering anymore. So I was an R&D engineer building medical devices and innovating really in that early stage, trying to bring products to market and not having access to the parts that I needed to innovate faster. And then in parallel, I was working for a design services company that was growing and scaling. And the head of the sales and marketing, who is my current co-founder, her name's Julie Schulte, she pulled me aside out of R&D one day and asked me a marketing question. Like, can you explain how this catheter construction works? And so I drew a couple circles and I explained it to her and was expected to be along my way. And she was like, you need to be in marketing. And I was like, well, I don't think so. I'm an engineer. And she's like, no, trust me. And we ended up growing and scaling one of the first e-commerce businesses in MedTech, that this company was selling the components, the parts like we are, but really just selling their own parts. We had the benefit of seeing the hockey stick of growth. We had a blast connecting the sales teams with the applications that the buyers were using these products for. And we just saw this kind of blow up, and we said, we don't want to do this for one company and be constricted. The engineers need a one-stop shop experience, and it's not limited by technology of one company. It's across, there's so many great technologies out there. And also some of these companies can't invest in their own online store. It's not a good use of their spend. They should focus on their technology and be a part of Chamfr so that the engineers have one-stop shop and suppliers have an access to an e-commerce and marketing channel like ours. So it kind of, everywhere we looked, it was a win for everyone, which was also really cool when you sit back and you're like, our business solves not just one problem, it solves like 5 or 6 problems, and everyone that's involved is a win. And so we just like, it was in the beginning kind of a no-brainer. Julie and I had kind of conceptualize the business together. It was very scary. We both have young kids. We're both working moms. We both were like, are we really going to do this?
Yeah.
But we also, there's never the right time, right? There's always going to be a reason not to. So we just kind of decided to give it a shot. That was about 8 years ago. And we're pretty proud of the product that we've grown since then. We've got an amazing team of people with us now as well. It was really just kind of scrappy founders figuring it out in the beginning. And now we've got a very solid bench of super smart people helping take us to the next level.
That's awesome. That's super, super cool. And yeah, I'm sure like when you first started, you're like, what are we doing here? Like, how are we going to go from our stable salaries to like, okay, what, you know, it's just in the beginning with any type of startup, you're like, am I making the right decision? And I feel like it takes like a very specific kind of person to really continue forward, even though you don't know necessarily if you're doing the right thing, but you have something that, like you said, you really believe in. You're like, I know that we need this. And it takes a very specific type of person to continue forward. And one other thing, like just as you were kind of talking and you said you guys have been in the business for 8 years, well, not been in the business, but been in business for 8 years.
Yes.
Going through COVID, what kind of challenges kind of did you see with that? Because obviously during COVID, you know, we were having shortages on everything. It was very hard to get products of any type really in the healthcare industry. And so did you guys kind of see something similar going on, or how did that kind of play out for you?
Yeah. Interestingly, it was scary. So number one, we decided to reinvest and rebuild part of our platform right before COVID hit. So we made a big investment and then we went, oh no, what did we just do? Are we going to be okay? What was this investment worth it? On the flip side, we had a lot of people, so a lot of the MedTech industry stayed open and functional through COVID. They found creative ways. Granted, a lot of elective surgeries were not happening, right? But a lot of these companies pivoted as best as they could to support and develop PPE or some other mechanism to leverage their technology and continue. Because, I mean, hospitals still needed to service people. There were still surgeries happening, just maybe not as many, right?
Yeah,
especially the elective ones. So we had the benefit of really being able to service engineers that still wanted to innovate and do their job, but from their basement, from their garage. Yeah. So we actually saw an increase in sales over COVID through our site that we just did not expect. And we also, seeing this unmet need in the industry, we created what was at the time called Chamfr Connect, because we wanted to invest in, one thing that we love about our business is that, and I said it before, is connecting people at their point of need, buyers and suppliers. So we wanted to do that, but specifically for COVID. So we developed essentially like a PPE connection tool, so people could source the products that they need specifically for COVID related purposes. And that was really, I think it was our gesture to give back and help try to connect people. And we were pretty excited to be able to do it at the time. And it was easy because it was just built on the foundation of what we already have on our platform.
Yeah.
But we didn't have nearly as much of an impact as I know many other businesses did through that pandemic. It was still very challenging. Businesses stayed open but didn't invest in as much development. And then there was a lot of excess sourcing, right? A lot of people were buying excess inventory, unsure of the long-term supply chain impacts to their business. So they wanted to make sure that they had a solid foundation. So what happened was our impact from COVID actually happened much later than what you would have expected.
Okay.
Let's see, so 2021, 2022, you actually started to see maybe some things shift and buying behavior change because people had over purchased so much material that they didn't need to buy more. Things have now leveled out and we've started to see much more normal buy behavior back in place. But it's really interesting just because I think the MedTech industry is so unique in the way that it was impacted by COVID, for sure.
Yeah, no, that is so interesting that you were seeing it in the time people were buying more almost, but then afterwards it was kind of this dip because people overbought because common things like toilet paper, even people were just stockpiling, for whatever reason. It's just I guess this automatic response that we get when we don't know what's gonna happen. We're let's make sure we have all the things we need,
Full panic, buy everything. Yep,
exactly. So that is interesting. Yeah. And did you see any issues with supply chain at all, or not really?
It didn't impact our business as much because we sell a small volume to, we're selling just onesie, twosie pieces, if you will. Because when a designer is making a medical device and they're coming up with something new, one thing that they need is the ability to try a lot of different configurations, right? So they don't need to buy, a huge 500 pieces. They might need just 2 pieces of a tube, let's say. Then they could try it, touch, feel it, see how it works, see if it gives them the flexibility or strength they need. Then they iterate with additional components. Then they're adding maybe a balloon or they're applying other pieces to this puzzle. So in order to get the puzzle all together, it takes a lot of trial and error, and especially new novel devices that have never been developed before, and you don't know how the materials are going to work together and what kind of constraints you have. And there's so much testing that's needed through the verification validation of a medical device to bring it to market that having excess and a lot of one thing doesn't really help. Having a lot of like having a wide offering, but being able to purchase on a small scale is really where we've seen a lot of benefit to the market. And then we're connecting the buyer with that supplier. So then once the supplier and buyer talk, then they get exactly what they need, and then they're happy to buy that long-term, large volume business, right? And we're always here for that early stage iteration. So we haven't seen significant changes in just kind of that general buy behavior. I'd say that, if anything, it was, like I said, an increase just because people were playing more and doing different things in the beginning, more so than we had expected with COVID. So we're very fortunate. As horrible as that pandemic was across the world, we feel very fortunate that we were able to kind of continue to operate our business as usual for the most part. We are a totally remote company too.
Yeah.
Warehouse or distribute anything. All of our suppliers ship direct to our buyers, and all of our team, while we have kind of a focus in the Minneapolis area with a lot of our team members there now, but we are spread out coast to coast in the US as well as a couple of folks OUS. So that has been a real, that business hasn't changed in the way we operate remotely either.
Yeah, no, that's super, super cool. Awesome. And I know that you mentioned too that you guys are kind of innovating this space. This is kind of a new concept. So what are people kind of used to with buying materials for new MedTech software and hardware? And what does that how are you guys kind of changing that game a little bit?
Absolutely. Previously, before really any e-commerce, and I'll preface this with the medtech industry is very slow to adopt anything new, right?
Yeah.
They're set in their ways. We commonly as an industry are set in our ways. We do things a certain way, relate us to like a dinosaur, really old school mentality. Things are kind of slow. And sometimes they're slow for good reason, right? We want to make sure you do the right thing. You're bringing the right product to market. Absolutely.
Yeah.
However, when it would come to purchasing behavior, often you'd have to buy a minimum amount of, let's say you're going to buy a tube and you don't have anything, there's nothing off the shelf, there's no e-commerce opportunities at all. You have to buy a minimum order. So you're buying at least, 500 feet, 1,000 feet of this material that you only really need one piece of. Okay. And not only that, you're telling the supplier exactly what you need and you're waiting weeks to get this.
Yeah.
It's 8 weeks. So now you've lost a month or so, if not longer, and you've got the material in, you tried one piece, it didn't work. You have all this excess material, and now you got to go back and restart again and try again if you can't kind of manipulate that material to work for you. And so it becomes this compounding effort, and tubing's actually pretty easy to get custom. You have some other complex products. Balloons can be very complex, other things that can take a really long time to get custom. And so now you're talking 6 months to wait for something that doesn't work, and then you have all this excess material. So what we've done is really change people's perspectives to say, you might not need exactly that size up front, but why don't you try these 4 things that are really close? Then you can make a more informed decision. So when you're at the point at which you're purchasing that custom order, you've already have some data behind your belt. You're kind of comfortable with what you think you might need to purchase, and your confidence level of getting the right part at that point is a lot higher, right? So, and then in terms of just sort of e-commerce in general, the whole B2C and consumer market, we are all so familiar with buying online, right? It's just part of our daily life. In our industry, it's been very different. I think a lot of people are very hesitant to put their product out there, put their pricing out there next to their competitors, really unsure. But as we evolve as an industry, and we're getting younger and younger engineers coming, being like, no, I really don't want to talk to a sales guy. I don't want to be called on. I want to be able to place my order online. I want to get that. I don't want to talk to anybody. And then I'm happy to talk to you once I've tried your product and can test it and see if it works for me. So that's been a shift. And even over the last 8 years, I'd say 8-9 years, because we took some time to conceptualize the business and think about what we were doing and how we were crafting Chamfr. We got, we've had a major shift in just even the suppliers that are on our platform and how they approach. In the beginning, we had to really convince people that didn't even really understand e-commerce at all and what it could do for their business. So now it's a much different situation. When we get into a room or we're talking to a new supplier, everybody is typically on board right away. It takes a lot less convincing. And it's really, for us, when we, at what we are in terms of the the benefit to the supplier. So the person that's actually selling the tubing or whatever the example is here, it could be heat shrink, it could be fittings. They are getting a sales lead. So when the buyer, the engineer comes and buys, they're buying a small like $100 order or whatever it is, that supplier now has someone to go talk to say, hey, how did this work for you? They're not cold calling like I need to call on you as a salesperson. It changes the game and the dynamic for the sales side for that supplier. And the buyer gets what they need right away. They can try it and then they're happy to talk because they're like, yeah, you guys are great. We love your product. We want to work with you. So that's one of the examples of like the win-win where it just has to just change people's approach and thinking to what you're normally used to and like what you'd call a true sales model or what the MedTech sales model was. We've really upended, but now we're seeing a lot of people get on board and really appreciate the efficiencies that it's bringing to the table for them.
Yeah, no, well, and it sounds like it's beneficial for everyone, like it's beneficial for the supplier, like you said, it's beneficial for the buyer because they're able to try it out in like smaller quantities and not have to wait 6 months to get something. Yeah, exactly. And then for the supplier, they're able to basically almost give like a sample, but like a paid sample to people, and then they get to try it out. And also, like you said too, e-commerce is something that people are so familiar with now, especially like the younger generation. It's like we grew up going on Amazon. Exactly. Everyone's so familiar with the concept at this point. It's like, why not have it in every aspect of our lives? Because it makes things a whole lot easier than having to like source in person.
Yeah, and also then you can kind of work, like a lot of people are working off hours, you're cross time zones. And sometimes you just don't really want to talk to somebody, you just really want to be able to get what you want and then be ready to talk when it's the right time.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's really helped shift. And for us as a business, we started really servicing what I'd call the interventional market, which is we call minimally invasive surgical products. So they're devices that are like a tube that go in a hole in your body that can then provide a therapy. So for instance, they can now do heart surgery with a hole in your leg. It's called femoral access. You have a femoral artery in your leg. It's so cool that you don't used to have to open up your chest and do everything fully open, which there is a place for that sometimes. But it's very invasive. It's very hard to recover from, and it's very intense. And so by just putting a little hole in your leg, you can put a tube up there, which might have, let's say, a balloon to open up your artery or maybe deliver a stent or a valve. We can do so much, but the important part of being able to do that is having the materials to do so, right? Having the right flexibility of that tube, having the right diameter or pressure of that balloon that's going to provide the therapy. So we've been just really focused, especially in that area, because that's where we grew up. Those are the kinds of devices that I was developing. But as a business, there's a lot that we could continue to service on the MedTech market. Like there's so much more opportunity than we've even kind of tapped into. So we're now in the exploratory phase of how else can we help people, right? What do buyers need that are in other markets, that are in surgical robotics, that are maybe in diagnostics, and how can we continue to truly be that one-stop shop so that we're ultimately making the R&D engineer's job easier, right? We're making their job easier. We're making the supplier's sales process easier and ultimately bringing products to market faster. So that's really where we are today, is like, how do we continue to grow and scale really with the focus on how do we help people in every aspect of this?
For sure. No, that's super cool. And so is that kind of primarily where you guys are focused over like the next year or two, is scaling into like different markets, still within the MedTech space, of course, but like kind of expanding what you all have kind of on the website right now?
Yeah, I'd say it's a couple fold. For one, we're really just, as I said, we're trying to really service our customers, our buyers as best as we can. What can we do better? What products do you need? But also, what other functionality can we include in our platform that can also support making your job easier, right? So that's where our focus is not only how do we scale the product offering, but how do we scale the product functionality to continue to evolve. And yeah, we have some exciting features coming. So definitely keep an eye out, because it's a really It's been, like I said, it's been a lot of fun and it's really hard to grow and scale a business, but it's a really nice place to be to say we've got the right team, the right people, the right systems to be able to kind of do all of this. We've always had a lot of great ideas and it can be really hard to execute without the right people or resources. And so we're at a pivotal moment in our business to be able to really execute on all the great ideas we've had forever.
That's awesome. And yeah, that's so exciting when you're like in that place because like you've probably, you and your partner have been working for 8 years probably to get to the point where you're at now, where you're like, okay, now we're ready to kind of take this to the next level because obviously it takes a group of people, it takes a solid foundation for what you already have to be able to do that. And so as you've kind of been scaling and like with even the goals that you guys have on the horizon, what have some of the main challenges been that have kind of come up throughout this process with really just growing a business?
Sure. How much time do we have left here?
Yeah.
It's been really hard. I'd say I don't think we understood all of the complexities of a marketplace when we started the business. Like we understood e-commerce because when it's a single vendor e-commerce, so I'm just selling t-shirts, let's say, out of my t-shirt shop.
Yeah.
It's so simple, right? It's you have one customer and you have essentially one product, right? But when you start the complexities are exponentially different when you bring a marketplace into play because you have a two-sided marketplace, multiple customers, multiple stakeholders, and it becomes really hard to, make sure that you're servicing them all appropriately. So I'd say that was one challenge I don't think that we fully understood. Now we can look back and say, wow, that was really hard, but we're really proud of ourselves for kind of, we've got, we have the grit to just plow through and figure it out. And we've made mistakes and we've pivoted and we've done a lot of different things. But I'd say, one of the hardest things throughout the course of this is getting the right people on the bus, right? Yeah. It can be really hard to find the right team members. We had a lot of starts and stops, even on the kind of the development and tech side. So we're really fortunate to have the team that we have now. And then I guess some of the other challenges is we are a woman-founded, female-founded business in a very male-dominated field. And that's been a challenge. We always knew it. So I'm wearing hot pink. This is our brand color. We do not shy away from who we are. We're pink and black. Every trade show that we show at, everybody knows us because there's hot pink everywhere. Every swag item has hot pink. Even women will come up to our booth and say, I was asked if I work for you because I'm wearing hot pink at this one conference. Like, oh wait, it's hysterical.
That's funny.
But, all jokes aside, it's definitely been harder than we expected. You think that, you really have to fight for that respect. There's a lot of things that we've had to go through that surprised us. Like it is what it is, but we are fighting the good fight. We're bringing good people along, and we do feel like a balanced sport is the best sport. So we're all about having men on our team as well. This is not just like, a female-only business because that's not healthy either. It's always how do you bring different perspectives, right expertise in, and once you get that gelling, it's just like the sky's the limit.
I love that. I think that is so amazing, especially the last point that you brought up with, like we are female founded and we're proud of it too. Like you're showing it with the pink, like you guys are always wearing it. Like I think that's so amazing. And especially like you said, being in kind of a male dominated field, it can be a challenge, but you guys are like embracing it and you're like, we're ready for it.
Yep, exactly. And you know what? People are actually been much more memorable than we ever expected it to be. While we thought it was fun to have a little hot pink with the black and what in the beginning, it's been like everywhere we go, people are like, oh, I wore my pink because I knew I was going to meet with you. Or, I'm trying to find a hot pink shirt as a guy. It's really hard. So people are just really on board and it's great. I mean, we have made such long-lasting relationships through growing this business that I don't think we ever would have imagined from the beginning, because we have multiple customers on both sides and we are very relationship driven. We feel like there's enough market for everybody out there. We really feel very dedicated to having a core focus of how do we drive more innovation and bring more products to market and help that. Once you have a shared goal, it's just everybody gets on the same bus, right? And everybody wants to be a part of it. The other thing we try to do is give back to the industry. So we have a trade show in Minnesota every October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And of course, our brand is very pink and it's just like the perfect opportunity. So we end up doing a big donation specifically to a very local breast cancer foundation. It goes right to the patients, to their needs and everything. And the whole trade show gets on board. Everybody's so excited to be a part of it. They love that what we're doing is also giving back to the industry. So we try to find ways to continue to do that. We would love to ultimately be a B Corp, which is a goal of ours, really giving back to the community, really with that focus. And I think when you at the end of the day, when you break it all down and, you look back, I think if you could just say, hey, we made an impact, even in a couple of people's lives, like that's a win. I think that's really, and that's the perspective that we try to have regularly. Of course, it's a business and you have to balance a checkbook and you got a P&L and you have all these other things to do. So I'd be remiss not to say that can be hard too. But on the other hand, I think if you have the right focus and it has the right, positive impact to the people around you, it can be very successful.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Which is similar to what you're doing here with your podcast, right?
Yeah, for sure. Just spreading the word, trying to impact people. I say spreading the spider web, you're just kind of spreading that influence to more people, trying to educate more people about what's going on and making an impact in whatever way that is, even if somebody listens to this today and they're like, this would make my life easier. Maybe it sparks a business idea for them, you know? So many different things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many ways to help each other, right? There's so many great ways to just bring each other up through this process because it's hard. It's really hard. No matter whatever you're doing, whether it's I know you have a consulting marketing business, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's very challenging as well. We do a lot of marketing as well. And, staying on top of all of the trends and everything that's happening on the marketing side of the business can be a challenge. But when you encounter great people that, want to help each other, it's really amazing what can happen next.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think you said it super, super great. Let all of the listeners know where is the best place to find you, connect with you, or also where to find Chamfr online. And I will also put that in the show notes too for easy access.
Great. Excellent. Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably our preferred way to communicate with our audience at any time. Shoot us a message. Follow Chamfr on LinkedIn. You can find us at chamfr.com. So that's CHAMFR.com. And you can find all of our products on there. And if you just click contact us, I actually see all of them. I don't always respond, but my team does. But if I see and you say, hey, Katie, I saw you on the podcast, I'll respond personally. So feel free to contact us that way. But yeah, like us on LinkedIn. And if you follow us, we've got all sorts of great content. We do webinars. We have a lot of upcoming and really exciting features to talk about. And we'd love to hear from you too. If you're in the industry and you're sourcing medical device components and you can't find what you need on Chamfr, we'd love to hear that feedback. So thank you so much for the time today, Taylor. It was a real pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it and appreciate your time.